I am proud to announce today that I am an original co-sponsor of the Green New Deal proposal. And this is a very big deal. This bill is not written, you should know, as specific detailed legislation. Rather, it is an excellent, in my view, broad outline pointing the way forward to address the existential crisis of planetary climate change. And at the same time, what this legislation and proposal shows that while we lead the world in addressing the crisis of climate change, we can also create millions of good-paying jobs in the United States. Unlike the President of the United States, who sadly and pathetically denies the reality of climate change and the human causation of climate change, this legislation demands that the United States of America, the most powerful economy on earth, lead the world in transforming our energy system away from fossil fuels and carbon emissions and into energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And what we are trying to do is to make certain that the planet that we're going to leave our children and our grandchildren, and I have 7 beautiful grandchildren, that the planet we leave those kids is a world that is habitable and a world that is healthy. Now, what this legislation recognizes is that among many other crises, and I'm not going to go into all of them, climate change is causing rising sea levels all over the world. And what that means is that communities in the United States and in countries far and wide, they're going to be threatened and they are going to be underwater unless we transform our energy systems. What this legislation recognizes is that we're going to see an increase in extreme weather disturbances. And we are seeing this every year right now, more and more. We're seeing wildfires. You all recall the terrible, terrible wildfires that took place a few months ago in California, wiping out an entire community, killing dozens and dozens of people. What this legislation recognizes that we're going to see more severe storms, we're going to see droughts, and we're going to see more extreme weather events that threaten human life, that threaten our communities, and that will cost us hundreds of billions of dollars in damaged infrastructure. Now, when we talk about climate change, it is not just rising sea levels, and it's not just infrastructural damage. Climate change is also, according to the CIA and the Department of Defense, a major national security issue. Because what you will be seeing increasingly is when climate change impacts a nation or an area, and there is drought and there is flooding, people will be forced to flee the land they currently live on, and they will be moving to new areas, creating international tension. Climate change is also going to have a huge impact on our oceans, the acidification of our oceans, and what it means to people who are dependent upon fish in order to survive. It will mean the loss of more than 99% of all coral reefs on our planet. Climate change will also result in heat waves, resulting in human death. And we're already seeing that, and we will see more of it if we do not get our act together. People who today are working outdoors will no longer be able to work outdoors in anywhere near the time they are now spending because of increased heat. Climate change is clearly an economic disaster for our country and around the world. Extreme weather disturbances, storms, hurricanes, floods will result in hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in public infrastructure damage just to our nation, not to mention the rest of the world. So, what does all of this mean? It means that, according to the leading scientists who have studied this issue exhaustively. What they are telling us that if we do not act boldly and decisively, literally within the next 12 years, which is obviously a very short period of time, if we do not act boldly, there will be damage done to our country and the rest of the planet, which will be irreparable. And that is why we have the moral necessity of moving forward aggressively now and transforming our energy system. What does that mean? Well, I think everybody knows what it means. It means ending our dependency on fossil fuel. It means making sure that our buildings are energy efficient. It means transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel, putting a much greater emphasis on rail and mass transportation, and making sure that the cars and the trucks that we need get much better mileage than is currently the case. When we talk about combating climate change and significantly reducing carbon emissions, it means that we must transform our utilities and our electricity production away from coal and away from gas and into solar and into wind. And in recent years, we have begun to see some real progress in that area. There is a lot more that must be done. In Iowa, for example, 40% of the electricity now comes from wind. That's important. In Texas, some of the cheapest electricity being produced in the United States comes from wind. Other parts of the country are also doing a good job. But as a nation now, we must be investing substantially, not only in making sure that our buildings and our transportation systems are energy efficient, but also in sustainable energies like solar, like wind, and other sustainable type energies. So what we are talking about right now is not just the future well-being of the United States of America, it is the future well-being of the entire planet. But the good news is that we now have the technology, a technology which will only improve in years to come, to make that energy transformation successfully. And when we do that, when we move to energy efficiency, when we break our dependence on fossil fuels, we can create millions and millions of good-paying jobs. And in the midst of all of this process, we are more than aware that there are communities in this country that are where the jobs are dependent on fossil fuels. We understand that. And nobody here is blaming the coal miner or blaming the person who works in the oil or gas industry. They are not the cause of climate change. The cause of climate change right now are the fossil fuel industries, the coal companies, the gas companies, the oil companies, who are denying the reality of climate change. And those are the folks we've got to take on. But we have got to do everything that we can, and this legislation does that, to hold harmless those workers right now in the fossil fuel industry who are doing nothing more than trying to protect their families. And our legislation does that. It will put substantial sums of money into those communities that are hit hardest by this energy transformation. So we have an enormous amount of work to do. And nothing less than the future of the planet rests on whether or not we will be successful. So the legislation that I am co-sponsoring today, the Green New Deal, is an outline, and we need to fill in all of those details. And we need your help in filling in those details. Every community is a little bit different. So how do we go forward in making massive cuts in carbon emissions and creating a clean economy that uses far less and eventually no carbon sources? So thank you very much for joining me today, and let us go forward together to save this planet for our kids and our grandchildren, while at the same time we improve our economy by creating millions of good-paying jobs. Thank you very much.